Welcome. Hello. Welcome to the FCCJ. Good morning to everyone who's here in person and those watching us online. My name is Ilgin Yorulmaz. I'm the second vice president of the Foreign Correspondents Club of Japan. Today we're talking about one of the most abhorrent crimes against women or against humanity, sexual violence and rape. We are pleased to host Catherine Jane Fisher. Welcome, Catherine Jane. She's a rape survivor and an incredibly strong and determined woman. She's an award-winning grassroots human rights defender who was raped almost 20 years ago, was unable to find any means for help, and decided to basically be the voice for the voiceless who have been going through this since that incident, and since perhaps even 1995, which she's going to talk about in other incidents. She's originally from Australia, and we'll let her tell her story and other story in her own words. And it's sad that after so many years, we're still talking about this, but women find it so hard to talk about such a deeply personal issue, such as rape, due to the stigma attached to it. Women who are victims of such serious violent crimes are themselves criminalized all over the world. Using legal loopholes, the perpetrators evade justice, diplomatic immunity, sometimes political agendas prevent them to take the full acceptance of responsibility and face those harmed by their actions, like Jane. For Jane, there was some relief when in 2013, roughly around 11 years after the attack, in a landmark case in Milwaukee County Circuit Court, for the first time, the court enforced a Japanese civil judgment for rape against her attacker. Now, we would obviously like to point out here at this point that we are more than welcome, we are more than happy to welcome to hear from the US forces in Japan about the conduct of their staff, especially when faced with such serious crimes as sexual violence and rape. Now, Jane wrote a book about it. It's called I'm Catherine Jane, and she raised funds for a rape crisis center in Tokyo, equipped with a 24-hour hotline for victims. She has also been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. I know now is the time for that also, and she's, for so many of us, the pioneer of the Me Too movement in Japan. So please, Jane, tell us your story and how this is unfolding, and tell us how it went yesterday with those two important meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. I would like to give a trigger warning for this press conference. Will contain graphic descriptions of sexual assault from this point on. So rape, it can happen to anyone, anytime, anywhere, and rape is an act of crime. We do think that this is mainly a women's issue, but men are raped as well as children. The United Nations Statistics Report shows that there are 250,000 cases around the world that happen yearly. So today, in this press conference, I would like to show evidence that despite the severity of many offenses, the punishments do not fit the crime and are lenient or lax, to say the least. In some cases, the perpetrators, after committing rapes, are sent back to the USA with honorable discharges and are not recorded on a sexual offender registry. So when I was raped in 2002, obviously I had been living in Japan for such a long time. I too personally did not know of the severity of how many rape cases had happened in Japan. Therefore, for that purpose, I would like to show you this tattered scroll, which I've been carrying around for so many years, to show you just the severity of how many cases we have. If someone would give me a hand to just to show this. Can I stand up?
Yes, please.
So if you would just hold that side. And these are the list of the cases which have been happening since 45. So if we just keep on going, and we just keep on going. So we can come here to the 1995 case of 6-year-old Yumiko. Now, what happened with this case, not even a week later, a 9-year-old child was kidnapped and assaulted as well. So we have cases of children who have been raped from the age of 9 months. Sorry, this is quite long. Yes. These are actually only the cases from the island of Okinawa.
And when is the last record on this scroll?
This one
Jane?
is 2008.
Okay.
So, people may say that 1955 was quite a long time ago. So what makes that relevant today? Usually when a government official talks about rape victims, they'll talk about the number of cases. But cases are not mere numbers, and this victim also, she had a name, as all victims do. Her name was Yumiko, and she was 6 years old. I imagine that Yumiko must have been petrified when she was kidnapped, and her parents equally stricken, terror-stricken, when she was missing. The devastation they must have felt when they were informed that their daughter was no longer alive and that she was found, her abandoned corpse. For the purpose of pointing out the severity of this case, I did write in here and the letter to the Prime Minister of Japan how she was murdered, how she was mutilated, and how this child was raped. Finally, after the inhumane mutilation of this innocent child, this serviceman just threw her into a garbage dump on the Kadena Air Base and left her there to rot. Let us let this story sink into our hearts for just a moment with our human nature that such a despicable crime once heard will never leave our minds and will be imprinted there forever. When this Sergeant Hurt was arrested, this understandably triggered a major, massive protest on the island of Okinawa. And imagine if he did not rape and murder this young child, she would have been able to live, pursuing her dreams as any child in this world deserves to. Injustice has occurred towards victims in Japan for decades, and as I said before, many instances, the perpetrators went on to create more victims when they were sent back to the USA without criminal records. So all of these cases could have been prevented. So to just cite 3 of these cases, one is Thomas Ledit. He was the 1995 case. He gang raped a very young girl. And so what happened is there was 3 men, and one of them, which was Thomas Ledit, he went back to the USA, and upon returning to the USA, he raped and then murdered another woman before he committed suicide. And the second case I'd like to talk about is Anthony Sowell. His last station, I think, was in the island of Okinawa. He was arrested in his Cleveland neighborhood when 6 women were found dead. So I'm also asking the Japanese government to investigate this case as well. And then the third case, I will cite my own, which is during the trial of my rape trial in 2002, the man who raped me, which is Bloke Deans, he fled the country during my trial. So in my case, I had actually looked for him for 10 years and found him. At that time, he was arrested and imprisoned for padlocking his own children in their urine and feces. So we see that this case, which happened in 1955, where the perpetrator, the criminal, was released early from prison, and he received at his burial a tombstone which honored him as a war hero. But there are no heroes when it comes to these kind of cases. So in my letter to the Prime Minister of Japan, it will be noted here in the press pack that I stated here, and I think we can give possibly the link to the video that approximately 8 years ago, our new Prime Minister, who at that time was the Foreign Minister to Japan, he was talking about my case in an interview. So what he had said at that time was, he said, the Prime Minister, our now Prime Minister said, first of all, I believe that heinous crimes such as sexual assault must never occur. And it is further stated that he said he intended to check the background on this matter and continue to pay close attention to any related developments. So I wrote in my letter to the Prime Minister, which is today, 8 years later, and as our new Prime Minister, I look forward to the day that he could change the Status of Forces Agreement. So if I could tell you the reason why the Status of Forces needs to be changed, and I'm wearing this T-shirt here, it says Article 16. In Article 16 of the Status Forces Agreement, it says that the US military must respect the laws of Japan. So when the man who raped me fled the country, I had a meeting with the Japanese government, and I said that he needed to be brought back to Japan. And the Japanese government at that time said to me that it only said respect the laws of Japan in Article 16, therefore nothing could be done. So that is why I have been trying to change that Article 16 since I was raped in 2002. And I do believe, it's very perplexing for me that if we could eradicate rape and decrease the crimes, then changing one word is quite a simple way to go about it. So also in the press pack here, I have 2 statements. One is from a former prosecutor, a US military prosecutor, who has stated, do you have that one there? Okay, thanks. It says here, I am Don Christensen, a retired U.S. Force prosecutor and the president of Protect Our Defenders. This is a dedicated human rights organization, and they have been helping with victims here in Japan. And he said that it is critical that Americans serving in Japan obey both Japanese and American laws and are held accountable when they fail to do so. I also have a statement here from the former Commissioner of Victims' Rights from the Australian government, who also says that crime victims should be treated with respect, dignity, and compassion. They are entitled to access the mechanisms of justice, and crime victims' rights know no borders. For too many victims, however, this is not the reality, Their fundamental rights to access justice, to redress, and to treatment are not fulfilled. Catherine's case is a prime example, and she has courageously pursued the rapist at her own expense to achieve justice. So I think here that as I can speak both Japanese and English, I was able to hunt down the rapist by myself. But in other cases for victims, which is now ongoing, and I am legally bound not to mention any of their cases, but they do not have the chance to fight in a criminal court system here in Japan. They are told that their evidence is not sufficient and they cannot claim redress. So I would have to say in my 20 years of advocacy, I have not seen one victim besides myself who has won a case here in Japan. This is how tough the hurdle is for these victims to try and receive justice. So I've mentioned that anyway. Also, the other thing that I did mention is that the resolution 1325, which is from the resolution of women, peace and security, the Security Council adopted this resolution to reaffirm the important role of women and in the prevention of conflicts and so on. So it called on the resolution calls on all parties to take special measures. And so Japan really needs to listen to these recommendations from world authorities. And the reason why I would say that here is because in the 2007 Committee Against Torture, which is in your press pack, there was a statement from the Committee Against Torture from the United Nations that said in the year 2000 that Japan was 5 years late in handing in their statement. So around that time that I was raped in the year 2000, Japan was not even properly responding to the United Nations Human Rights Council. At the moment, my statement is for our organization is at the CCPR in Geneva, and we are awaiting a response from the United Nations, also concerning the amendment of Article 16. So one question that would you like to?
Yeah. Are you?
Sure.
Would you like us to
Yes.
go into the comments and questions?
Yes,
Thank you
please.
so much.
Thank you.
I would love this to be a conversation as well. So now let me begin by personally saying, I do feel very sorry for everybody's case here, and so. It seems like, according to, I did some research, and according to an Associated Press survey, there's a pattern of random or inconsistent judgments in more than 1,000 reports of sex crimes involving Japan-based U.S. military personnel. And this is only between 2005 and 2013. I don't have the data after that. But in some cases, these U.S. military commanders overruled recommendations to court-martial these people and dropped the charges instead. So I'm just wondering, are the laws not strict enough that you want to change them, or are the people who are supposed to practice these laws not obeying them? So can you just tell us a little bit what's wrong? Why are you being failed like this?
Okay, so for me, when I was a victim, I can speak for myself, is that I thought, obviously, because there was a zero-tolerance policy, that they were going to help. But that's not the case. And I did actually, in my book, I Am Catherine Jane, I have here on page 168, I did ask the American military, I said to them, why did the rapist not respect the laws of Japan? And he simply fled the court trial. This is one of the main reasons that I feel that the Status of Forces Agreement needs to be revised. And the public affairs director of the United States military said, "We believe that we have no gain in talking to you." And he paused as if he probably saw my jaw drop when he said that. And I said to him, "For the record, would you mind repeating what you said to me?" And the second time, he said it a little bit more slowly so it could sink in, I presume. And he said, "We, the United States military, have no gain in talking to you." And in an immediate response, I replied, "Well, I see. So much for the zero policy then." I said, "I'm very shocked and in disbelief about your answer to me. I'm very disappointed." And he responded, "I thought you would be." So this is the kind of response that the United States military had given to me. But on the other hand, we do have former US military prosecutors who've seen the holes in this and who are working now to help survivors. But still then, the hurdle is still very high because we're up against the United States military. A lot of the victims would actually even fear for their lives. In my own case, followed by secret police, which is on YouTube. You can see the videos of, because anything that I do say, I have 100% backup data of everything that I present to you today. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'd like to open this to the discussion on the floor. Are there any questions or any comments so far from the floor? If I may go to one of the questions that was submitted online. So this is from Pio D'Emilia. He is actually one of the veteran journalists of Foreign Correspondents Club of Japan, and he welcomes you back at FCCJ. His question is on the present situation in Okinawa and other bases in Japan. Do you have any direct or indirect information about new rape cases being somehow covered up?
Yes, I do. These cases, I'm legally bound not to mention anybody's names or about the cases, but most definitely, yes, there are ongoing cases right now that cannot be resolved, that need to be resolved. And yesterday in the meeting with the Japanese Foreign Ministry and the Ministry of Defense, I did ask them if I could meet with them again so we could help to resolve these cases, because they must be resolved. And as I am saying, is that time lost means lost lives. And so it's very simple for us to just make a few changes. And so if the United States military and the Japanese government is very serious about their statements that they want to see an eradication of rape, then we must make immediate changes. Thank you.
Okay. Jane, may I ask, why is this issue not more widely spoken about in Japan? I know you are an expert now in this case on this issue, but why are you not being interviewed even more by, say, the domestic media? Why is this silence?
Yes, okay. If you can imagine, I had 90 seconds to speak when I was speaking at the United Nations Human Rights Council in 2019. And you have 90 seconds, and if you go over the 90 seconds, your microphone will be cut. And when I spoke firstly about the data from the Japanese government, which says that there is over 200,000 crimes which have happened in Japan, committed incidents by the United States military. And then when I spoke about cases in Okinawa where women are being abducted, this is just recently, murdered and then stuffed into suitcases. If you see the footage, the people who are sitting behind me feel very uncomfortable as I mention these cases. And to talk about this would make anybody feel uncomfortable. That's why I gave a trigger warning at the beginning of this. Because when you hear something like that, it means that now you know it, you have to do something about it. So what can we do about it to change this problem? And so I would just like to say that I am very grateful and thankful on behalf of all past victims, present victims, and future victims to the media who have for the past 20 years echoed my voice. Because the more that we have this conversation, the more that we can eradicate the crime. But if we keep on remaining silent, that silence is actually the friend of the rapist. So I need more journalists to, keep on keeping it in the media and talking about it. And actually, there was, as I mentioned before, when our new Prime Minister, Mr. Kishida, was the foreign minister, he actually did talk about this. And so if media can pressure the Prime Minister again and say, when are you going to change this? Thank you.
And can you tell us a little bit about the atmosphere yesterday when you delivered these letters? What was it like? How did they react?
Okay.
Who were there?
Yes. So I actually went there by myself. I organized the meeting, and there were 2 representatives from the Foreign Ministry and 3 from the Ministry of Defense. I was very impressed with the level of their English, which was very high, and also that there were female representatives there, and quite young. So I think this is a very welcome stance that they have taken, that we have more women working for the Japanese government. And perhaps with some younger people, they will see that it's really important to tackle this gender-based violence immediately.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments, any questions? Please, if you can. Yeah, please come to the microphone and state your name and your affiliation, if possible. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bethany Kennedy. I am with Uprising. It's a student-led feminist magazine. We formed out of a necessity to protect students after there was a rape case at my university, so it's a pleasure to be here and hear you speak today. In your letter to the Prime Minister, you mentioned that there is no world standard rape kits available for victims. I was wondering if you could elaborate on that?
Sure. When I was raped in 2002, a rape test kit was not available. So that also gave birth to the reason why I decided that I had to continue with this grassroots advocacy, almost 20 years ago. Knowing that there was no rape test kit, when I had learnt about that as a child back in Australia, and I had also began working with the World Victimology Society, and Michael O'Connell, who at that time was the commissioner of the Australian government for victims' rights, actually brought the first rape test kit to Japan. And at that time, I had the rape test kit in my hand. This was years later. And I thought, wow, I wish I had had this rape test kit when I was raped in 2002. So that led me to be working with top university professors at hospitals, and we started to get the rape test kits coming into Japan. So, but one thing, the flaw in that though, is that Japan tried to make a rape test kit at that time, which was made of glass. And so the reason why rape test kits are made of plastic is because we're only human. So perhaps if you had taken a forensic sample and you had it in a glass flask and you dropped it, then you've lost your DNA sample forever, because there's only probably one chance to get it. And so I said, you can't make it with glass. And then the last time I went to a rape crisis center here in Japan, I asked to see the kit. And the most important part of that kit was missing, and that was the blood sample test, which was to show if a victim had actually, in fact, been drugged. And that, to me, was the most important part, because if a victim has been given some kind of date rape drug, then if that is not in the test, then how are you supposed to have, you don't have your evidence there. And we can't really go ahead and do it ourselves. And then also the other thing which was here missing in Japan is the rape test kits, the way that they can be investigated here in a timely manner. So, yes.
I'm curious, are they available in most hospitals or no? Because I'm wondering, I'm sure there's a time frame to when you can actually, to like when it's too late.
Yes, it's probably 24 to 72 hours, because then you're going to lose it. And if the victim showers, then you've lost it. Or if they wash their hands. So it has to be done quite timely.
And you describe in your book, I believe, your questioning by the police in those crucial 12 hours right after the attack, right?
Yes, exactly. Almost 20 years ago, we had the reenactment of the crime, which happened at that time. And victims have to reenact the entire rape from beginning to end in photographs. And so you actually have to be the director of your own rape at that time. And that also can be seen in a documentary by 60 Minutes. It's called The Power of One. You can see that online. And that is something that I have been advocating for many years to have changed, to do the reenactment. And so then they had an idea to use dolls, but that doesn't really work either. So, but I must also add here, one thing is, I did file a suit against the Kanagawa police for their inhumane treatment towards me. And can you imagine, about 7 years later, on the day that I actually lost against the Kanagawa police for that case, but can you imagine 7 years later, I'm at one of my art exhibitions, and there was a man came up to me and he said, "I am a police officer, and I would just like to say, I'm so sorry." And he started crying. He said, "Because what you wrote in your book is true," because he actually did the same thing. He used to do that to victims as well. But I'm not at liberty to mention his name either, but he said, "Please forgive us." So, what has changed? I know there's a lot of younger policemen and policewomen in the force, and I do hope that they will have more sensitive training, which is also in the 2007 Committee Against Torture report, which is in the press pack. What the United Nations had recommended to the Japanese state to do in 2007, which still has not been properly implemented.
Okay, thank you. Yes, please.
Isabelle Vincenkist pour Le Petit Journal. About the rape cases in Okinawa and else, do you know if the US government react on these issues? And is there any joint forces, US and Japanese, to work on it?
Japan and US, sorry, what was the last part?
Japanese and US forces to a task force to work on these issues.
The war criminals.
Yeah.
They could have something which is that they're doing by themselves, but it's not public that I know of. So I really do feel that the American military forces stationed here in Japan should have a say in this, and that in the next meeting that I could have a meeting with the United States military officials together with the Japanese government, because definitely for all these years, they're missing out of the picture. And for example, in the the Japanese government did award me 3 million yen as a compensation back in, I don't know how many years ago that was. That was gone immediately because I had to pay for court fees and bills. But then after that, I had to pay by myself for 10 years to find the rapist by myself. So compensation doesn't really do anything anyway. But in my own case, because I really truly believe that action must be taken, that is when I went to the US, found Perkins and Coie, which was my legal team, and when I knew that I had to win this landmark case, because I had so many women and men and children before me, that I had to win this case. That is when, I have a bigger version of that. This is when I decided that I would settle this case for $1 so I could make a difference in this world. So you can imagine when I came back to Japan, I didn't have any money at all left, but it was the sacrifice that I made for the women and the men and the children that would sadly come after me. And I think, you know, it's something that this is not just an issue that I need to tackle by myself. I'm doing this for society, and I really do need more support. And so I really do thank the media once again for coming here today.
Jane, there's one question from one of the journalists, Tim
Yes.
Horniak, online. He says he was reading about your case, and he's wondering why you chose to accept the $1 settlement, and you just explained now so gracefully, from the perpetrator in the US lawsuit. What admissions did he make as part of that agreement?
Okay. So what happened is, obviously, because I had been awarded much more money, and the legal fees for my legal team in the USA was over $200,000. And they decided that they would take my case pro bono, because I had said, all I want to do, justice is not about money. I'm not concerned about the money. I knew the stories about what was happening here. And as a human being, we only get to live once. So what is something that I can do? What is something that I can do to stop this? And I really do believe once you become a rape victim, you get to join this secret society that you don't want to be a member of. You're in this secret society. Don't want to be there. But what we all have the same feeling in our heart is that we want this to stop. So that's what I thought. What could I do? And that is why I did the $1, so I could make a difference. And then after that, I think it was in 2015 or 2017, I'm not quite sure, but even Taylor Swift, the very famous singer, actually did the $1 case as well. So once we start this movement, other people can follow.
So did the perpetrator admit to anything? Or?
Well, he had to admit that he had fled the country. He had to admit to that he had raped me, and that my court document, my court ruling, which I had won in the in Japan, was then enforced into the USA. Did he have a criminal record after that and get some, that he would be, a record as him as a rapist? I still don't know about that. But in most of the cases, many of the rapists who are sent back do not have any kind of criminal records. And that is bringing back the focus back onto Yumiko again. And because we are digressing a little bit there, is that with Yumiko's case as well, that the man who raped her, Sergeant Isaac Hurt, probably no one knew that he was a child mutilator. He was just living in his own hometown, I think it was Reading, Ohio, and got married. So how could that be? So, and I actually started to write all of these crimes on bed sheets, actually. And if I could just ask you, thank you, to show you this. And there's a reason why I wrote this on bed sheets. Okay, so. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. So the reason why this is on, is the mic on?
Is the mic on? Is the mic on?
Okay, so the reason why I wrote this on bed sheets is once this is knowledge, how could you sleep at night? How could any prime minister sleep at night knowing that this is going on? Since 1945 up to present day. The first case here, which is a 50-year-old man, is shot to death while he's trying to stop his wife from being raped. So anybody that tried to stop them, they were murdered. So, and the gang rapes here, which is quite horrific, continued on and on and on for so many years and still to this day. So that's why it's on the bed sheets. And this was only just 1 year, so if I wrote down 70 years, it would probably be such a long piece that where would one be able to put this? You know, to display it, which I would like to do so. But yes, do you have any
Yes,
questions?
there is actually one question from Eric Johnston from Japan Times. How are status of forces agreements so far the U.S. has with other countries like South Korea, Germany, the U.K., Australia, your home country, different in terms of dealing with crimes by U.S. soldiers off base? Are those agreements tougher or looser than the SOFA with Japan?
That's also a good question too. Okay, I'm not very versed on what the SOFA Status of Forces Agreement is in other countries, but what I can say is that the way rape cases are handled is completely different in other countries. So, for example, in Australia, we have the Commissioner of Victims' Rights, and so if we need to speak to the Commissioner, then because his job is victims' rights, we can go to him and he can help us. And the organization inside the government can help. And so it always puzzles me that if there is a status of forces group inside the government and we go there and they don't do anything to help us, what is the point of having that inside the government? Also to say that when somebody reports to the Japanese police, they are re-victimized again. So that is not a very politically correct way to actually treat rape victims. So in Australia and in other parts of the world, victims are treated with more respect.
Thank you. Any other questions on the floor or any comments? If not, then I will continue with something I had in mind. I know before coming here we talked about it a little bit. There's a similar case now that we're on the issue of this comparison between Japan and other countries. There was, I believe in 2019, a case in the UK where a teenager named Harry Dunn sadly died in a tragic motorbike accident because it happened in Northamptonshire, and the driver was under the diplomatic immunity of US government and was able to flee the country, basically. So there is a question about that from Isabel Reynolds from Bloomberg News. She says it's not directly connected with rape, but have you noted the swift changes in the UK after a US diplomat's wife was allowed to flee following a fatal road accident last year? The parents of the victim were allowed to meet President Trump, and immunity was removed from some relatives of US diplomats in the UK. It seems a stark contrast with the way such changes work in Japan. Why do you think Japan is so far away still, perhaps?
Okay, so the fact that many of these U.S. military servicemen are receiving immunity for their crimes is something that we really need to change. And the more people that can speak up about it, that is why I'm taking action. And the data shows that there is a lot of these crimes happening in Okinawa as well, with drunk driving and these violent offenses, which I have here in the press pack, which the data showing from 1972 up until 2016, that there were 5,000, almost 6,000 crimes committed. And I do know there is one case, in this similar case, where the young boy was murdered when he was run over, and the person who committed that crime was also sent back to the US. But I think the governments are possibly more involved in helping the victim instead of covering up the crimes. And so, but the voices of the victims are saying that they really want to have a chance to have their cases heard in court, and they're not getting the chance.
So what do you think should have happened in your case then? Like right after the attack, you reported to the police. Just can you tell us very briefly what you would expect to have happened in hindsight?
In hindsight, that of course, obviously, with the amount of injuries that I had, then he should have been arrested immediately. In hindsight, if I could redo the whole thing over again, not the rape, of course, but to do what I had done, was I went immediately to the Japanese police. I would never have gone to the Japanese police. Never. Not in any lifetime would I have gone to the Japanese police for help. Because as a child, being brought up in Australia, we are to the understanding that a Japanese or a policeman is there to protect you. But on the other hand, if you go there and then they're going to re-victimize you and treat you like a criminal, then what is the purpose? So in my case, I was actually held for over 12 hours. I begged to be taken to a hospital, and I was denied medical treatment. They said, no hospital open, so you just have to wait until the next day. And I said, let me go home. And they kept me hostage inside a police station. I would use the word hostage because I was not allowed to leave. Every time I wanted to leave, they said, no, you have to stay here and talk to the police. 60 Minutes did actually do a report about that, and they went into the Yokosuka police station where that happened, and the Yokosuka police said, we need you to respect this police station, get out of here. And the reporter at that time said, but we are asking you the same thing. Why don't you respect this woman? So, I really do believe and hope that if this could change, but how much longer is it going to take? So if we had our own places where we could get the rape test kits done without going to sea, and have our own places where they can check for the DNA, that would be so much easier.
Yeah. Okay. Any one more question from
Yes.
Isabel then, if I may. recently, she's asking, have you been in touch with the U.S. government and military regarding your request, those two requests that you mentioned now, immediate and thorough investigation, and your request to amend Article 16? What is their response? What is the latest situation?
Okay, so I think it was this year, April, I went down to Okinawa to pass a letter to the Okinawa governor to also ask for his cooperation in changing the status of forces agreement and to, help doing more prevention and awareness of the crimes that are happening in Okinawa. And at that time, I did deliver a letter to one of the U.S. Bases on Okinawa, and I did not receive a reply. No reply from them.
Okay.
But I won't give up. I'll just keep on asking. And then perhaps if anybody would see, anybody from the United States military would feel free to contact me so we could actually have a proper discussion about ways that, because they really need to see that I'm on their side. We all want to see that, to see these crimes stopped. And so if we can work together, it can be done. It can be done. We can eradicate it. But if there is such a lenient, way that the United States military servicemen are getting sent out, that is giving the wrong message to men. Because men should be using their power to protect and respect people. So if they show them, this is what you need to do, because that's the reason why they are here, is to protect. But instead, if they are here and they are continuing to terrorize the people, then that is definitely wrong and needs to be changed immediately. So I'm very, very interested in meeting with the American military so we could work on it together.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just, we have about 5 more minutes left. Any other questions? I'm just asking on the floor or online. Please keep sending them. I just want to ask you, because I think it's on everybody's mind also, this Me Too movement.
Yes.
So there have been some good changes, I think, some changes at least towards the positive. What do you feel about it? Is it going to help your cases as well?
Yes. So many victims do approach me and ask for help. And there was one person that came to me, I think her name was Shuri Ito, and said that she needed my assistance. And that was a couple of years ago. So I don't turn anyone away and continue to, as I have done so for 20 years, to help all victims, not only U.S. military, but but we need more support. My father, actually, I just like to give a tribute to my father, because my father, from his 60s up until he was 87, he just recently passed away. And it's very, very sad, because I did think that in his lifetime that we would see an amendment to Article 16. And it was so perplexing to my dad and to me, is why one word can't be changed. Respect the laws of Japan, make it to obey the laws of Japan. Because look at it this way. Look at it this way. What rapist respects? Rapists don't respect people. So we need to change this. Obey the laws of Japan. And lastly, I have a new project that I'm working on, and I'm waiting now for the CCPR from Geneva to get the results back from that, and I hope that good recommendations will come to Japan. And then also I am in the process now. I have 2 statements, one from the one of the leaders from the World Victimology Society, Michael O'Connell, and then the founder, I think co-founder of Protect Our Defenders, a former U.S. military prosecutor. And the list will go on, because from now we are collecting world scholars who will also echo my voice and the voice of other intellectuals around the world that this needs to stop and we need to change it. And this is one way that it can be done, by changing Article 16. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we had Catherine Jane Fisher today. Thank you so much for coming and for being with us. And again, we congratulate you on your courage and determination to speak about this after so many years. And we wish to welcome you back with better news. I think you've been really one of the key people talking about this in Japan. So we very much want to keep this conversation in public discussion. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And let's not forget, there's always hope that we can have great change with the next Prime Minister. I really do believe that it could be possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And on that note, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.